A 3-year-old girl was found barely alive in a Utah basement, bruised, unresponsive, and suffering a skull fracture doctors say could have killed her. Now, her mother and her mother's boyfriend, both healthcare workers, are facing charges of attempted aggravated murder and child torture. Prosecutors say the alleged abuse was prolonged, deliberate, and documented in chilling text messages. We're going to break it all down for you right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, real quick, before we jump into all this, I got to tell you about something exciting that is happening here at Law&Crime. We have partnered up with On Patrol Live and Reels to launch a YouTube channel. Now, if you're unfamiliar with On Patrol Live, you're definitely missing out. So Dan Abrams hosts this. It is truly one of my favorite shows on the Reels channel and Reels Plus app. Every Friday and Saturday night, they follow police officers across the country in these high-stakes ride-alongs with over 50 cameras rolling live, capturing all the actions in real time. And as you can imagine, the incidents caught on camera are quite wild. From high-speed chases to daring rescues to intense standoffs, everything in between, it just never stops. So head on over to On Patrol Live's YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. The channel link is in the description. The channel officially launches on Monday, July 14th. Trust me, you will not want to miss it. We've got another case of alleged child abuse that we got to talk about. This time it's out of Sandy, Utah, where a mother and her partner, both reportedly healthcare workers, are now facing first-degree felony charges, attempted aggravated murder, aggravated child abuse, and child torture after the mother's 3-year-old was barely found alive, covered in bruises, and in a medically induced coma at the time of this recording. Prosecutors claim the brutal torture culminated in a skull fracture that was so severe the child would have died if not for emergency intervention. Court documents reveal disturbing allegations of violence, a text message threatening murder, and deliberate delays in seeking medical care. And this is raising urgent questions about how, if all of this is true, how this purported abuse went unchecked for so long. Now, we have been following this story, and this is one we definitely wanted to bring to you. And you know, one of the reasons that we can do this, to really dive into these cases, is because of the amazing support that we get from our sponsors, like Upside. Now, Upside is great. It is a free app that gets you cash back when you buy daily essentials. I pump my gas, I can use Upside. I go out to lunch, I can use Upside. Maybe I get something at a convenience store, I can use Upside. And why not get cash back when I do all these things, right? This is real cash back. It's money that appears in your Upside app that you transfer right into your bank account. So once you have the free Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying in Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card. You follow the steps on the app, you get paid. So to find out how much you can earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen. But make sure to use our promo code SIDEBAR because you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. So we're going to break down all the details inside the case, the charging documents, but fair warning here, this case is extremely disturbing. This is not easy to hear, and the allegations are incredibly violent. You go to the morning of June 28th, 2025. Sandy police rushed to a home after receiving a call about an assaulted child. When first responders arrived, they were met with 29-year-old Amber Leary, the mother of the 3-year-old victim in this case, only being identified, by the way, in court documents by the initial CW. Leary led them to the basement, where this little girl was found lying motionless on a bed, barely breathing, and her face and body covered in bruises. According to the charging document obtained by Law&Crime, Officer Ron Butler of the Sandy Police Department noted, quote, several bruises on CW's face just below both eyes. She had a greenish blue color over her whole body, and it appeared as though she was not getting enough oxygen. Sergeant Colton stated that he saw multiple bruises all over her body. She was rushed to Primary Children's Hospital, where doctors made some more gruesome discoveries, including a complex skull fracture with extensive soft tissue injuries and internal bleeding. CW was examined by Dr. Antoinette Lasky with Primary Children's Safe and Healthy Families, and Dr. Lasky in a report noted, quote, significant bruising to multiple body surfaces and planes. The number and distribution of these injuries are more than what is expected in a developmentally appropriate toddler such as CW. Dr. Lasky's report further states, additional evaluation has identified complex skull fracture with extensive soft tissue injury, subgaleal hemorrhage, subdural hemorrhage with thrombosed bridging vein injury, and extensive cutaneous injuries in the face of reported inflicted trauma on more than one occasion. So what triggered these injuries? We're going to talk about it. But before I go any further, I want to bring in somebody we haven't seen in quite some time, Jeremy Deus, criminal defense attorney, former Salt Lake County District Attorney. Jeremy, thanks so much for taking the time. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Jesse. Happy to be here.
From a prosecutor's standpoint, what factors likely lead to an upgraded charge of attempted aggravated murder in this case? I mean, that is quite serious.
It is quite serious. And I think that overall, kind of the aggravating factors here are some of the text messages that, we really probably need to get into when we're talking about the severity of this case. Just overall, the shocking, disturbing nature of this, the fact that it happened over a period of time. Statutorily, if you break down the aggravated murder statute, because it's not just, if we're talking about how the district attorney's office stepped this up, it's not just that they're stepping it up to attempted murder, it's the aggravated nature of it as well, which brings everything up. That's when child torture comes into play. So they've been charged with child torture as well. And whenever torture is an element, that gives you the opportunity to bump it up from attempted murder to attempted aggravated murder. So really, at the end of the day, it's the shocking nature of the facts, the text messages, that sort of thing.
If you put the text messages to the side, because I want to talk about that, is it the level of injuries? Is it the way, and we're going to get into what potentially happened here, but is it the level of injuries? Is it the state she was found in, where prosecutors say this is not just neglect, this is not just abuse? I guess what the argument is there was an attempt to kill her, to attempt to murder her, attempt to end her life. That's the key there, right?
That is the key there. Intentionally or knowingly, murders cause the death of another. So yeah, you're right.
One of the things I think this comes down to are the injuries. And I'm imagining from a defense perspective, one of the things they may be trying to argue or will argue, potentially, I've seen this in other cases, is this is a young girl. She's running around. She's bumping into things. It's not unusual to have toddlers who have injuries on them. How do you, but then you also hear the expert medical testimony from Dr. Lasky, right? How, can the defense bring in their own expert to suggest that these injuries were not inflicted by these adults, but that were a result of something else? And does that complicate the issue for a jury?
They can absolutely bring in an expert to come in, and they're going to have to bring in an expert to kind of come and try to explain some of these injuries away. Now, there's an important distinction to be made here, because there's got to be something there that takes this from your standard child abuse that involves serious bodily injury and bumps it up to attempted murder. I don't know if the severity of the skull fractures and the brain bleeds quite get you there to get it up to attempted murder. I think it's got to be more than that, because there's got to be something that distinguishes the attempted murder from the child abuse itself. So it's not uncommon for children with these kinds of injuries that are charged with attempted murder and not just child abuse. I think what makes it aggravated to the point where the DA's office decided to file the attempted murder charges is the length at which this abuse happened and bringing in the torture element. The injuries obviously are a concern, but the bruising that is talked about and the fact that these bruises are new, they're old, and they show a history of abuse.
In your experience, if we take these allegations as true, how does a child slip through the cracks in the sense of Child Protective Services or anybody knowing that there are injuries here? And by the way, we'll get into a little bit more about, was there a concealment of this young girl to make sure nobody saw the injuries? But I'm sure you've seen cases slip through the cracks, wondering why didn't an agency step in further? Why didn't law enforcement step in further? And we're not casting aspersions or blame on anybody, but in your experience, how is it possible that abuse cannot be a one-time thing, but can go on for a period of time and no one does anything?
In order for an agency to get involved and kind of play a part, whether it's the police or whether it's child services, something like that, they've got to know about what's going on. Now, here's something that's a little bit unique about this case. Leary doesn't have any family in Utah. They just moved here in, I can't remember if it was March or May, but they're recent residents to Utah. Belone does have family that lives here. It was part of the reason why they moved here. They actually met in New Hampshire and spent a chunk of time living together in New Hampshire. So as far as anybody, any sort of friends or outside family or that sort of thing that could have come in and seen the state that the girl was in, that the child was in, I don't know if there was that standard opportunity that may have been there if both Leary and Belone had lived here for a long period of time and had an extended family network. So what it sounds like here is you have a couple with a 3-year-old child who came here and moved here together within the last 2 to 3 months. Probably didn't have the opportunity to make friends to the point where they're bringing people over for dinner, and didn't quite have the family network, certainly not a family network that Leary could fall back on in order for this child to get some of the services that she would have needed, or to even have the opportunity to have authorities alerted.
Let's talk about that, because as investigators dug into this, into the hours before the call, they began interviewing Amber Leary. And what they say that she told them was so disturbing, because Leary explained that she and her boyfriend, Tyrel Scott Belone, had moved to Utah in May. She was apparently a CNA, Belone a traveling nurse, and according to police, here's what she apparently told them the morning her daughter was essentially nearly killed. Quote, Leary stated that she and Tyrel Belone, her partner and co-defendant, moved to Utah on May 1st, 2025. On the morning of June 28th, 2025, Leary stated that she left for work at about 5:30 a.m. and was about halfway to work when Belone called her and said, "You need to come. I think CW needs to go to the hospital." Leary asked what happened, and Belone said, "Just come home." So she returned to find CW unresponsive in bed. Leary described CW as dead with a heartbeat. Leary said Belone told her he had thrown CW on the bed and she ricocheted and hit the wall. And even then, Leary didn't call 911. Why? She claims Belone forbade it. Leary said that Belone wouldn't let her call 911 and said things like, "If you call, I'll go to jail. You don't have any money. You don't have any friends. What if she dies?" Leary said. And Belone responded, "She'll be fine." Jeremy, back to you. Okay. If we take that allegation as true, you go back to attempted murder. If he is trying to discipline her and gets frustrated and throws her on the bed, again, why do they think that that is attempted murder? Is it that they don't believe that she just threw her on the bed and she ricocheted, or do they believe this is not the story? He deliberately threw her in an aggressive manner to kill her.
Again, I think they're talking about a course of conduct here, that he's engaging in a course of conduct over an extended period of time. That was just kind of the I guess, for lack of a better phrase, the cherry on top of all of it. I mean, really, that's what's most likely going to end up being what caused the brain bleeds, the skull fracture, all of that. But again, we're not really sure, because the week prior, over the course of days, he had admitted, well, at least Leary had said that that Belone had admitted to striking her multiple times in the face, causing the black eyes, the raccoon eyes as it's described. And ultimately, that toss on the bed is what caused the most serious injuries and ended up getting us to the point where authorities were called.
In Utah, is a mother like Amber Leary potentially as legally responsible as the person who physically inflicted the injuries, even if she didn't cause them per se?
Well, under the statute reads that if someone essentially allows somebody to do that to a child, they can be held accountable as well. So here, where Leary knew what was going on, Belone had admitted to her what his conduct was, that he had struck her. This is before tossing her on the bed. Admitting to striking her seeing the bruises, communicating with Belone, knowing where Belone was mentally, still leaving the child in Belone's care. There's a really good argument to be able to say that, look, she was allowing this abuse to happen. And if she's allowing this abuse to happen, then yeah, she can be held criminally responsible for it.
Can she use it as a defense? I don't know. Coercion of some kind? I didn't have a choice. Or do you need some sort of something more for that to work?
So as far as defenses go, there's going to be a little bit of a difference between an affirmative defense and what I would say is a mitigating defense, right? there's not going to be an affirmative defense for it. What she's going to be able to, and is probably going to have to argue, is that there was a kind of abuse and from Belone himself, and she was afraid based on his threat, saying, look, you're not going to have enough money, you don't make enough money, her knowing that she doesn't have kids here. That is going to be an element of it, but as far as the defense, it's not really an affirmative defense. It's just going to be something that's mitigating. It's going to be something where her attorney is probably going to go to the prosecutor and say, look, here are all the things that she feared. This is the reason why she didn't go to police or alert authorities earlier. Again, she still allowed it to happen and didn't call until it was kind of a life or death scenario. So she's not going to get off clean here.
Let's talk about Tyrel Belone. So detectives, they also sat down with him. This is post Miranda, and they began asking questions. And he described the previous day in detail, telling police that the child, who had started to show some progress after struggling with potty training, was regressing severely, according to him. He told police that CW had become combative, biting him, scratching him, that it was becoming difficult to care for her and clean up after lots of toilet accidents. And according to police, Belone actually admitted to spanking her and putting her in her room on the previous day, June 27th. Later that night, the accidents continued, according to him. And then came one moment where he told police that he nearly killed her. Now, before we get to that, Jeremy, he's describing these alleged disciplinary actions, like spanking, isolation. At what point does discipline legally cross into a crime or legally cross into child abuse?
Well, to the point where some of these bruises and some of these actions are being done. If he's admitting to, and remember, we're talking about a 3-year-old here. We're not talking about an obstinate 15, 16, 17-year-old or even someone in their early teen years, some 13-year-old who has early growth and is starting to kind of bow up and challenge his father, right? That's not the scenario we're talking about. We're talking about a 3-year-old who's struggling with potty training, regressed because she's in a brand new area, most likely, with no access to family. So she is going to probably, the fact that she's regressing is not surprising. In the child abuse statute, there is generally a carve out for appropriate parenting. And I just don't see how Belone's admissions of striking her both in the face with a closed fist, backhanding her, the bruises she sustained from spankings, I don't see how you can make an argument for appropriate parenting here. It may be something that his attorneys try to argue.
Saying I was at the brink. I had no choice. That's not going to work.
I don't think that's going to work with this level of injury, no.
Right.
This level of injury, absolutely not.
Let me go back to this, so we go back to this moment. Now, Belone told police that he had been woken up after the child had another accident, and he was asked to help clean it up. But instead of just cleaning up the mess, this is what he apparently told police. Quote, Belone stated that around 5:30, 5:40, just before Leary left for work, he picked CW up and threw her on the mattress. CW bounced and ricocheted. This is what Belone said. CW contacted the bed and her head hit the wall. Police say he elaborated further, even describing the force of the throw. Quote, Belone further stated that when he threw CW, her body skimmed the bed and it was like a rock skipping over water. Belone described that he grabbed CW's left forearm and left leg and threw her face up. CW's body was perpendicular to the bed and she contacted the bed with her back. CW spun and hit the wall with the right side of her head and face, which took most of the impact. And instead of calling 911, Belone called his mother. According to police, she was the one who urged them to take the child to the hospital, and he believes that his mom is the one who called EMS. Jeremy, what do you make of what were these new revelations?
Well, so again, we've been talking about a course of conduct, right? It's something that started with, you can kind of see the frustration continue to build here. It starts with probably spanking and then progresses to the point where he's striking her in the head. And now it's to the point where he's so frustrated, he grabs her and throws her up against the bed. She hits the wall with her head. Now, you've got to try to imagine what kind of force would be necessary to crack someone's skull when they're hitting up against the wall. So, I mean, this wasn't just a frustrated casual toss. This was something where he really had to put something into it. So again, when we talk about what kind of circumstances are there that kind of make the DA's office start to lean towards filing attempted aggravated murder charges, this is one of those factors that I'm sure that they looked at. Now, yes, his mother's in the medical field. According to the documents that we have, his mother's a nurse practitioner. He called her. Some of the more disturbing things, I think, that really cut against Belone are the fact that when mom said, well, FaceTime me. Let me see what the child looks like. He declined to FaceTime her. He wouldn't FaceTime her until he left the room and Leary was there, and Leary called her and FaceTimed her. And based on my read of it, what it looks like is Leary FaceTimed Belone's mom and was able to do so because Belone had left the room. As soon as Belone starts to come back to the room, she converts it back to a regular call. At that point, Leary needs to go out to take a smoke break. She leaves, texts Belone's mom their address, and also, according to the documents, calls 911 herself. It doesn't look good on Belone at all. It looks like he's really still going through the process of trying to hide it. He understands what the score is. He understands that there's a high likelihood that he's probably going to be doing some jail time, maybe some prison time. In his mind, if this sort of thing gets out, Leary takes the opportunity to step out, makes the call, and it really may be an opportunity for Leary here to kind of highlight some of the fears that she had as it related to Belone, to try to create a kind of what we talked about earlier, that mitigating circumstance where maybe Belone was abusive to her.
As the investigation continued, as we've been talking about, detectives discovered that this incident wasn't an isolated incident. In fact, according to prosecutors, abuse had been going on for weeks. That's the allegation. You have this court-authorized search of Belone's phone, and it uncovered graphic, violent messages reportedly exchanged between him and Leary beginning on June 21st. I'm going to read some of these, where one is from Belone on June 21st, 2025, 10:26 a.m. She bleeped her pants and bit me. Find her a new home or I'm leaving. Belone writing on June 22nd, 2025. I'm going to murder her. Leary writing on June 22nd, 2025 as well. I'm literally so sorry you have to deal with this. Belone writing, then come get her. I'm about to crack her skull. Leary then saying, I can't leave work. Jeremy, how impactful are these messages? Because I imagine a defense attorney will say he was frustrated. He wasn't actually going to murder her. Sure, it looks bad now after what happened to this girl, but he didn't have an intention to actually murder her. Prosecutors will say, we're proving in a case of attempted murder. He allegedly put her in a coma. He was abusing her. She was injured. And then you got these messages. His intent is clear. How do we look at it?
Well, you're exactly right. From a defense perspective, your argument is, looking at these messages, these aren't uncommon messages for a lot of frustrated parents out there. It doesn't mean they act out on it, right? I mean, I think there are all sorts of parents across the country who have at one point or another said, oh, I'm so frustrated with our child. I could crack their skull. Right? You don't mean that you're actually going to crack their skull. You don't mean that you're going to even do anything with them. That's going to be, I think, part of the defense's argument. As far as the prosecutors go, I mean, there's a lot to it, right? He's saying exactly what he is doing. When he's saying that he's going to crack her skull, that he's going to do all of these things, he's actually doing them. He is actually hitting her. He is actually spanking her. And at some point with this toss on the bed, and really it's not a toss, it's a throw, and a very aggressive throw, he ends up cracking her skull. Is it going to be enough to convince a jury that he's guilty of torturing a child? Yes, absolutely. Is it going to be evidence and damning evidence of aggravated child abuse? Yes, absolutely. Is it going to be enough to get to attempted aggravated murder? I mean, I don't know. Attempted aggravated murder in and of itself is a pretty difficult charge to prove as a prosecutor. I think that the text messages, I mean, it's all going to be up to the jury and what your jury looks like and how they view those text messages as it relates to the facts as a whole with the physical injury.
And during his interview, police say he made even more horrifying admissions. Quote, Detective Glick asked Belone about the raccoon eyes on CW, and Belone admitted to spanking CW 4 to 5 times. He used an open hand to strike CW high on the cheekbone, and that it was probably, quote, pretty hard. When asked whether he had ever punched the child in the face, Belone apparently said, I have knocked her a couple times. Police say he even confirmed using a closed fist, striking her in the cheekbone, the forehead, the temple. Now, Leary, for her part, told investigators that during the week of the assault, she had kept CW home because the bruises on her face were too visible. But her reported lack of intervention, prosecutors say, made her complicit in this alleged abuse. Now, the Salt Lake Tribune reports that in a pretrial detention motion, prosecutors stated, while defendant Belone committed these extreme acts of violence, defendant Leary made the choice to watch the abuse happen, made the choice to allow the abuse to happen, made the choice not to seek medical care when needed, and made the choice not to seek help from professionals or law enforcement despite the victim's extreme visible injuries. And according to the Salt Lake County Prosecutor's Office, the two were taken into custody. They now face, again, these following charges: 1 count of attempted aggravated murder, 1 count of aggravated child abuse, and 1 count of child torture. In a media release, Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill urged parents struggling with taking care of their children to seek help, saying, if you are a parent who is struggling with your children, please ask for help from friends or family or outside organizations that can help you. As parents, we're meant to protect and raise our children in a healthy environment where they can flourish. Jeremy, let me just stick with that part. Gill's statement encouraging struggling parents to ask for help, because the idea would be if you did that, maybe all of this could be avoided. What are the safety nets that actually exist in Utah for parents who have difficulty and need help?
Well, so on its face, like Sim said, family's always an option. DCFS is also always an option. There are services that are available for people who are in need of help. When I was at the district attorney's office, I remember going to a training. It was at a homicide conference, and we had a speaker who came in and talked about child abuse homicides. One of the things that always stuck with me when I listened to that training is that any parent at any moment, they can be a great person, can always have the possibility of snapping and doing something to their child. We just can. I think any parent who's potty trained a child, who's taught a child to read, to do math, a teenager how to drive, understands the frustrations of being a parent. And left unchecked, sometimes those sorts of things can lead to an incident where something that everybody regrets happening happens. And this is an example of that. He's frustrated with the potty training, how she's doing, instead of him reaching out for help and saying, hey, look, because remember, he's the one who has family here. He's the one who should have resources to reach out to somebody. He's the one who should know how to reach out. Leary, having no family here, she still has a history in law enforcement. I believe she worked at a jail or a prison, a correctional facility at some point for a significant period of time. She should know that DCFS is available, whether she has family here or not. There are resources available for people in that situation. If they're witnessing abuse, if they're afraid, they need to find those resources and get their child out of that sort of a situation.
Finally, with these first-degree felonies, what kind of sentence could they each face if they're convicted?
So the attempted murder is obviously significant. The child torture in and of itself is, if convicted of child torture, it's a mandatory prison sentence. And if there's no sort of plea deal or anything like that related to it, it's a mandatory minimum 10 years. All of these have the possibility, because they're first-degree felonies, of being up to life in prison. So if we're talking about a scenario where they're convicted of all three, depending on how the judge runs the sentencing, whether it's concurrent or consecutive, I mean, you're talking about 25, 30 years of prison here for each of them.
Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time. I know this is a difficult case, but we really appreciate you putting it all into context and explaining the law to us out in Utah.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.